So this is our third lecture for our week on gender and sexuality, and this time we are talking specifically about sexual orientation. So sexual orientation is the inclination to be heterosexual, attracted to the opposite sex, homosexual, attracted to the same sex, or bisexual, attracted to either sex. It is a little bit more complex than this, but this lecture is all about complexities. So this is our base definition, but there is more to sexual orientation than that. The Kinsey Scale was first put together in the 1950s by Alfred Kinsey. It interprets sexual orientation as being a continuum. So at one time it was thought, well, and in many areas it still is thought, you're either straight or you're gay, basically. But Kinsey was one of the very first social scientists to really look into the phenomena. So he derived this 7-point scale, 0 being exclusively heterosexual, 6 being exclusively homosexual, and 1 to 5 being somewhere in between. Kinsey found a number of things. First of all, his first major conclusion is that many people who reported as being heterosexual did have homosexual encounters at some point during their life. Another major finding that came later on is that most bisexual people are not those even threes we would think of. Most bisexual people do have a preference for either males or females, but they are also sexually attracted to the other. And another major finding in this regard is that human sexuality may change over the life course. So many of us have heard stories about people who were married for maybe 20 years and then all of a sudden got a divorce and ran away with someone of the same sex. Now, the common misperception is that, oh, that person was hiding it all those years. Oh, what a tragic thing. Uh, Now, regardless of tragicness, the reality may be that that person actually was attracted to the person they were married to for a very long time, but their sexual orientation shifted. When we talk about sexual orientation, we often talk about the phrase LGBT, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. So lesbian and gay is obviously women attracted to women, gay people are men attracted to men. Bisexual people refer to people who are attracted to both males and females, and transgender people are people who feel that their body, their birth body, the body they were born into, does not match the gender that they are. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Now, there are some more letters, though, that you may have seen. It's LGBT. Keep in mind that term LGBT came in the 1990s. Well, since then, we've added an I and two A's, a P, and two Q's. So let's talk about a few more of these. You very rarely will see all of those letters, but it's good to know what you're looking at. So that I refers to intersex people. So these are people born with combinations of both parts. And this isn't just one biological condition, it can be a range of biological conditions of varying degrees of rareness or not rareness. It is an insulting and obsolete term to call these people hermaphrodites. Don't do that. The A can refer to asexual. These are people that simply don't have sexual feelings, which can be a little bit difficult for many of us to understand. But asexual people simply, they're not driven by that. Allies are heterosexual sympathizers and friends. I am a heterosexual male, but I do consider myself to be a strong ally of the gay community. Pansexual people. These are people, they say it's attraction to personality, not necessarily body type. Um, there may be some confusion between the difference between pansexual and bisexual. Pansexual tends to incorporate um, greater acceptance of trans people, and again, more talking about the type of person as opposed to what their parts actually are. Q, queer. Queer is a good catch-all. Sometimes this entire community is called the queer community, but just like other words that have been reclaimed that were once slurs, if you don't feel comfortable using that word, it's probably best not to use that word. Questioning is often included for youth or people questioning their sexuality. This is, as I mentioned, often used to describe young people who might not necessarily have their whole stuff figured out yet. So if you see programs for LGBT young people, that questioning cue might be in there. There are some commonly confused terms regarding transgender people. So transgender people are people who feel their gender does not fit with social norms imposed on them. Transgender people can be heterosexual, bisexual, or homosexual. A transgender person um, might be transsexual, which is a person who feels the need to seek some sort of gender reassignment. Now, this term, transsexual, is now becoming obsolete, so it's probably best not to use it. The reason that's becoming obsolete is because the general consensus now in the community is that it's none of your business what is happening with that person's genitals unless they want to tell you about it. Um, Note, obviously, all of this is changing so quickly that it is very hard to stay on top of it. And an update there is that instead of saying transgender or transsexual, the term trans is becoming the more preferred term. And that might change in the near future. That's just what we have right now. Um, and another commonly confused term, transvestite. This is an obsolete term. It often refers to a person who enjoys wearing the clothing of the opposite sex. And actually, usually transvestites are heterosexual men, which is a relatively interesting phenomenon. Another confusing term, the transition is when a person chooses to change their physical parts. This can include taking hormones, surgery, social transition, or a combination of all of these relating to trans people. The transition is very expensive. The surgery, the hormones are all very expensive. Um, we don't use these as much. This is kind of becoming dated. This was like a 2000s kind of thing. We would refer to the MTF trans person as a male transitioning to be female, or FTM, female translating to be male. You also, um, someone who has a trans person who has transitioned to being female in, again, the most modern vernacular, we call that person a trans woman. And then a female that has transitioned to be male, we call that a trans man. And if this is all very new to you, it is a lot to take in. So I don't know, maybe listen to the lecture a couple times. Or it's, if you're really confused or you want to know more about something, send me an email. I like to talk about this kind of stuff. Yeah, so some more updates. As I mentioned, this material changes incredibly rapidly. Now we're starting to talk about people as being non-binary. Non-binary people are those that feel that their gender identity cannot be placed in either a male, female, or other category, or that their gender identity shifts so rapidly they don't want to be placed in one spot. That term non-binary could throw most of those letters for a loop, right? So that term non-binary could incorporate bisexual people. It could incorporate many trans people. It could incorporate all kinds of people. So that term maybe will replace LGBT entirely? Who knows? We don't really know yet. But as of right now, we are still talking about LGBT people, and now we are including conversations about non-binary people. Cisgender is another term that we are using. A cisgender person is an individual whose gender identity matches the sex they were born with. That term, cisgender, that's most of us, right? I am a cisgender heterosexual male. And it means consistent, right? So my gender is consistent with my physical body. And this is not intended to be an insulting term. It has been accidentally used by some people as an insulting term. In most cases, it's not intended to be an insulting term, but uh, sometimes it's interpreted as thus. I hope it doesn't become an insulting term. It's a very useful term to use. You can talk about transgender person. You can talk about cisgender person, and those can be helpful distinctions. So this week, our discussion, I'm giving you a series of prompts for you to respond to, and pick the one that matches your lived situation the best regarding coming out of the closet. You don't have to have ever come out of the closet or feel comfortable with your coming out of the closet situation to participate. Just pick the one. There's an option for everyone there. And please share in this as much as you feel comfortable. Um, yeah, feel as much as you feel comfortable. But if you share more, it will help. Our longer essay, I want you to watch the Gender Revolution documentary. It explores gender, not only gender issues, but also transgender issues. And there is an essay prompt to go with that. So that is the end of this week's lectures. And I look forward to discussing this with you in the discussion boards. Thanks.